understeer there. So you can actually see on the dashboard that there is effectively a blue carpet of sorts that the car is actually following. We have come to the end of our day here at Auto Shanghai. Let's be clear of one thing, it's not because we've been to every single booth, it's because we've run out of time. But yes, we've spent a day looking at cars, but we are also going to be able to drive some of them, right? We're going to be driving some Zeekr models, some Lynk Co models perhaps as well. So let's cut to Hangzhou. And now we are here in Hangzhou. So we are in the middle of effectively a gigantic parking lot where there's been a bunch of stuff set up, right? So over there is something of a gymkhana course. We have some static stuff here as well. But perhaps most relevantly, we will be driving out on the public roads, which is a little bit unusual in China. Two things we're going to try to focus on today. The first will be the Zeekr 7X. That's a car that we know is definitely coming to Singapore sometime in Q3, Q4 this year. And we are also going to try to get behind the wheel of the 007 GT, a car that we hear might make its way to Singapore. So this is the 007 GT, and as the name would suggest, it's the GT version, Gran Turismo version of the 007 sedan, so it's a wagon, right? And the easiest way to think about it, think about a Porsche Taycan. This is trying to compete against the Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo specifically, right? In terms of performance, what you need to know, in China, there are two variants offered. So there is a 310 kilowatt rear drive version and a 475 kilowatt all-wheel drive version. Not sure which one we're getting in Singapore, if we're getting it, but let's guess it's probably gonna be both of those models. Now, from a design perspective, I think it's quite a familiar Zeekr, modern, sleek design. Now let's jump inside the car and look what it looks like. Now, we've just jumped inside the 007 GT, and first impressions, it feels like an expensive space. So we have lots of leather and soft touch materials everywhere. It feels well put together, right? Like everything feels like it's been screwed in properly. You know, the switches feel quite nice, quite tactile. And as far as the overall user interface is concerned, I think, again, I'm probably going to be saying this quite a lot this time around, but it feels very familiar, right? It's what you expect from the modern Zeekr setup. The infotainment system, it's fairly obvious in its operation. It's all in Chinese, so not great for me. But even so, I actually can understand quite a lot of things, right? So you have things like your car functions, your lighting functions. This is your driver assistance functions. There also are some AI functions here. It says here beta, so you know it's probably still work in progress. And then obviously tons of your safety features. How much of it will actually be available in the export markets? That's a question that will be answered in time as and when the car will be made available. Now, what else do you need to know about the car? Let's maybe jump into some of the driving functions. There are a bunch of drive modes, right? So you have comfort, you have eco, you have sport, you have snow, and you have personalized. And this also, by the looks of it, has adaptive ride height, so you can actually set 5 different ride heights, which is quite interesting. And I think that perhaps speaks to the concept and idea of a GT, right? It needs to do kind of everything. It needs to be quite sporty when you want it to be sporty, but also be able to do some off-road stuff if you need to. So that's the front seat. Let's maybe jump in the back and see what it looks like. Now here in the rear seats, first impressions, lots of space. So I've got a good amount of headroom and lots and lots of legroom. This is quite big, quite a long car, and it's going to be very comfortable, right? I think the seats are nice and plushy, feels a little bit supportive as well, which is quite nice. And yeah, this is, I guess, one of the benefits of a wagon style, right? You're gonna have lots of interior space, but it's also gonna be really practical because it's still gonna have a big boot. So let's go check out the boot. So one of the benefits of a wagon, of course, is its massive boot space. So 645 litres, and if you knock down the rear seats, it goes up to more than 1,700 litres. So this is the Zeekr 7X. This is the next Zeekr model that will be coming to Singapore later this year. And we have previously checked it out. So, some of the functions like the lighting stuff you can see in the previous video. Now, interesting thing, we initially speculated that some of that lighting features will really not be able to come to Singapore just because of homologation issues. But we've been told by Zeekr Singapore, maybe keep a lookout for it. Now let's go jump inside the car. Now we're just getting into the 7X, and first thing to know, foot on the brake pedal. Cool. As far as the rest of the cabin is concerned, it's gonna be what you have seen in the 007 GT. Again, I think fit and finish is good, materials are nice, you got some ambient lighting things over here, but other than that, the layout is exactly the same, right? So same kind of clusters, more or less same buttons on the steering wheel. I have yet to really spend a lot of time, but I'm gonna say an identical infotainment system, right? So a lot of the same functions, your ADAS, your AI functions, your drive settings. So here, let's test my Chinese again. We have sport mode, standard mode, comfort mode. You have 3 different levels of regeneration plus nothing. So U is nothing. This is your steering weight. So there's 3 different steering weights. I think this is your ride height. So we have ride height adjustment as well. So yes, there's quite a lot of customizability as far as the car is concerned. Again, the caveat being that this is the China spec model. So this has the everything spec. What we're gonna get in Singapore, let's wait a couple of months to see. But other than that, it's quite a familiar cabin. It's all things considered simple cabin. It's quite straightforward, not a ton of buttons. A lot of things is obviously gonna be housed here in the screen. We have 2 charging pads and quite a lot of storage spaces all around. Now, the important thing about the 7X, of course, is its size, right? It's your mid-size SUV segment, and that's arguably the most popular segment right now. So right now in Singapore, Zeekr has the Zeekr X, which is your really compact crossover, and then they have the Zeekr 009, which is your massive MPV. So I think the importance of this car cannot be understated because it gives Zeekr in Singapore a product that competes squarely in the middle of a very competitive segment, but perhaps more importantly, a very popular segment. So I'm guessing that this car will really help with the brand's sales. Now, we do want to jump into the back seat because there is an interesting little detail on this car. Let's go. Now, we are going to jump into the back seat on this side for one important reason. Also worth pointing out, electric doors. So we are here on effectively the passenger side, and as you can see right in front of me, I have a nice screen over here. So this is arguably the best seat in the house, right? So you have full access to a whole bunch of apps. They're all in Chinese, so again, not very helpful, but your entertainment apps, you can control a bunch of functions, your volume. There's also access to, Bluetooth, karaoke, KTV. Now, the rest of the cabin is quite familiar, quite comfortable, lots of leg room, lots of headroom, and 3 people will sit here very, very comfortably. It's, again, a mid-size SUV, so it's big-ish car, right? Interesting thing, we have here something called safety guard cameras. So there is a camera here pointing to the back seats. What that's supposed to do, I'm sure it's some safety function, maybe some child protection thing. Again, question mark about what Singapore is gonna get, but hopefully we'll get a whole bunch of stuff. Now, rear seats are also adjustable, so that's a nice, premium luxury touch, right? So if I want to really lounge, oh damn, it goes down quite far. That's honestly really quite far for a typical mid-size SUV, and now I find myself a little bit curious and interested, right? Because, typically you think of these cars as just your standard family cars, don't overdo it with the functions because, it's just about practicality and stuff. I think Zeekr are trying to find that combination of both practicality and accessibility, but also luxury that we've seen in something like the 009s. So this is clearly a step in that direction. Alright, so first driving impressions, this car obviously has plenty of pace. It's an all-electric car, so that's to be expected. It's quite a big and long car, so it's obviously not going to be the sharpest handling car in the world, but it handles quite well. It goes where you want it to go. Yeah, a little bit of understeer there. It brakes well. Cal is going a little bit crazy at the back. And now we've jumped into something slightly different. This is a Lynk Co, and the big difference with Lynk Co and Zeekr is that Lynk Co primarily are combustion engine cars. So this is perhaps your more typical version of performance. So obviously with a combustion engine car, the sense of performance is a little bit different, right? You kind of have to wind it up a little bit more compared to an EV, but the other difference is that this feels immediately a little bit lighter, a little bit more responsive, a little bit less understeer. Also, this is kind of a performance version of the car, so that also helps But it's interesting, right? So with Lynk Co, it's pitched slightly under the Zeekr brand within the larger Zeekr group because, you know, they do need to differentiate their products. And unfortunately, we will not be getting Lynk Co in Singapore. At least our understanding right now is that there are no immediate plans to bring the Lynk Co brand into Singapore because it is left-hand drive, and while there are conversations about perhaps doing right-hand drive models, right now there are no specific plans to do so. Alright, so we are now going to finally be able to drive. So now we're finally going to be able to drive the Zeekr 7X, so let's hop in and let's get out on the public roads. Okay, so we are now out on the public roads, and first impressions, it's a very comfortable car, and I think that's primarily its intention, right? This is gonna be primarily used as a family mover. Is it the most luxurious thing I've ever driven? Let's maybe drive it a little bit more, but I think first impressions are that it feels very, very mechanically accomplished. Now I'm just going to quickly play around with some of the functions. So just toggle on the regeneration, it's now at maximum, and I'll be very honest, it's not the strongest regen I've ever felt in the world, and this is perhaps not too surprising. I think that's kind of what we've kind of expected from the Zeekr cars. Now in terms of the overall size of the car, it's not a small car. It's not supposed to be. It's still, I think, all things considered, relatively easy to place on the roads. I think visibility is generally very good all around. Now let's turn off the regen altogether. Now steering is definitely on the light side, so it's now in the standard setting and it's really, really quite light. Now as we mentioned just now, there is also adjustable ride height. I don't think it's going to fundamentally affect the overall balance of the car. Now let's give it a little bit. Well, as you expect, it's plenty quick. So this is the all-wheel drive version, so 470 kilowatts of performance. And you know, with EVs, especially these dual motor EVs, performance is never going to be an issue, right? You're going to get all the performance you want in the world. This car will do 0 to 100 in like 3.8 seconds. So that's, let's be very honest, probably much quicker than you need your family SUV to be. Let's also talk quickly about the ADAS systems. I haven't really played around with them that much so far, but I think one thing you can tell immediately is that the car is using all kinds of cameras and sensors to really pick up everything that's on the road. And all things considered, I must say it's been very accurate, right? So lorries are lorries, cars are cars, bikes are bikes, and humans are humans. So we've just turned on the cruise control and yeah, car is doing what it's supposed to do. It's honestly pretty good at recognizing the road marks as well, because we are kind of driving in not the best marked roads in the world, and it's actually detecting all the different road markings, right? So if the lane markings are a little bit disjointed, it also detects all of that. So that's good to know, that's good to have. Now in terms of drive modes, we primarily have what I can tell are 3 drive modes. So we have Sport, we have Standard, and then we have Comfort. Does it fundamentally affect the nature of the car? Yeah, a little bit. Like the steering gets a little bit lighter. I don't know if it has adaptive suspension and it changes, but you know, fundamentally it's quite a comfortable car, no real complaints. Now let's also maybe talk about some creature comforts, right? So this car gets a lot of stuff you expect from a premium luxury model. So we have ventilated seats, we have heated seats as well, although maybe not so useful in Singapore. And we have massage seats, and it's not just your driver massage seats, not just your passenger seats, it's actually on all 4 seats. Well, sorry to the middle rear passenger, you don't get your own ventilated and massage seats, but everyone else, you know, you're gonna get a wide suite of comfort features, and I think that is very in keeping with what this car wants to be, because you know, it's interesting, right? I think Zeekr started life maybe really wanting to talk about being a high performance brand that is, you know, very tech focused, but we've seen that they maybe are moving a little bit more towards their luxury space, which is not to say that they don't have the performance, right? This car will do 0 to 100 in 3.8 seconds, so performance is very readily available if you need. It's just that I think it's going to be difficult to compete in the performance space, perhaps with some of your more established brands already. And performance is something that not quite tangible to every single person, right? Like, sure, early in the morning we managed to drive in a close sort of track setting, and there you can really push the car hard. But for most people, this is how you're going to be driving it. And this is a very, very nice drive. It's very serene, it's very comfortable. Honestly, I think the thing that strikes me is that it's a very easy car to drive. Right? You're not thinking too much about the car, you're just, driving it like you would any normal car. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the assistance functions, right? So I think the one that's perhaps most useful to most drivers will be your cruise control. And of course, with most modern cars, you're gonna have your adaptive cruise control or assisted cruise control, whatever you wanna call it, right? So in this car, we have obviously a standard cruise control. So you just hit the gear lever down once, and then if you go twice, you actually have the DC dynamic cruise control, whatever it's going to be called. So basically, it has the lane centering function. So you can actually see on the dashboard that there is effectively a blue carpet of sorts that the car is actually following. Okay, that's very interesting. So what the car just did was that there was a little bit of an obstacle on the right side, and it actually veered slightly outwards to avoid that stationary obstacle. So clearly the car recognizes what it's doing. There's a little vehicle in front of us. It's an electric scooter, and it actually recognizes it on the screen and is actually slowing down accordingly. Now, one other thing to point out is that this car also has a heads-up display, and it's quite a advanced heads-up display in the sense that it's showing a live feed of exactly what's happening in front of you. So you can see the lane markings in the middle, lane markings on the side, you can see the car, there are probably obstacles if it comes up. How useful is it? That's maybe a relevant question to ask, because in a sense, what you're seeing in front is what you're seeing there. So you should be able to already see those things. But I guess if you have your safety, your assistance functions on, then maybe that helps you detect stuff as well. But fundamentally, it's effectively just projecting what you see here, there on the windscreen. So some quick concluding thoughts about the Zeekr 7X, right? So we know that this will be the next Zeekr model to come into Singapore. And I think it's a very important model for the brand because it gives them a product in what is both the most competitive segment right now, arguably, but also the most popular segment, right? People are buying cars of this size. This is your mid-size SUV. I think unsurprisingly, as with the other Zeekr products we've already tested, the product is very mechanically accomplished. There's no real doubt about that. I mean, that's partially to do with the fact that it shares engineering with your Volvo product and so on and so forth. But the products are good. I think there's no two ways about that. There's then the question of what is the appeal, right? What stands it apart from other cars in this segment? I think the most obvious one right now is that premium luxury positioning. So you get a lot of functions, a lot of features. Is that going to be enough to stand the brand and the model apart? Now that's going to be the big question, because I think it also then comes down to that question of price, right? How expensive is this car going to be? It's not going to be a cheap car, that's for sure. But in this segment with a lot of competition, not just from your Chinese brands, but also from your European brands, right? There's a lot of options for buyers to choose. So I think given the right price point, I think people will be drawn to this car because I think it has a lot going for it. Admittedly, we also have to acknowledge that specifications-wise, we don't know fully what Singapore is going to get based on some initial talks. I think some of the mechanical features like your damping setup, perhaps even your electric doors, your reclining rear seats, that's probably going to be in the car that comes to Singapore. I would guess that some of your more software features, right? So some of your ADAS features, even that screen at the back, they're probably not going to make it into Singapore. So that will also then finally affect the price of the car. But yeah, so that's just some quick early thoughts with the 7X. I am so far quite impressed with the car, but we definitely have to wait till we get the car in Singapore and take it out for a much more comprehensive test drive to then be able to properly evaluate this car. So this concludes our time here in China with a look at some of these Zeekr products. The 7X we know is definitely going to be coming to Singapore, and the 007 GT, well, we'll keep our eyes on the lookout for that car. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and do remember to like, share and subscribe to our channel, and also hit the notification bell so you will be alerted when new videos are posted. And you can also find us on TikTok at Sgcarmart. So that's my time here in China done. I'll see you back home. Bye!